Hello, thoughtful Virgo. As August 29th, 2026 unfolds, something inside you may feel ready to move. But this time, the deeper question is not whether you have enough strength to act. You already do. The real question is whether you can recognize which direction truly deserves your attention, your patience, and your energy. Lately, you may have felt unsettled, overly focused on details, or as though you should have everything figured out by now. You may have a strong urge to correct something, make a decision, organize a situation, or finally bring clarity to something that has remained uncertain. But that restlessness does not automatically mean that something is wrong. Sometimes it appears because an old way of managing life has reached the point where it can no longer give you the certainty you once expected from it. Before making your next decision, give yourself enough space to understand what is actually driving you. You naturally know how to notice what others overlook and how to turn complicated situations into something more manageable. But there is a difference between being prepared and trying to eliminate every possibility of uncertainty before allowing yourself to move. If you have been feeling scattered, mentally tired, or unusually determined to find the perfect answer, pause long enough to hear what is underneath that impulse. The goal is not to abandon your standards, Virgo. It is to keep them useful enough that they help you build your path instead of exhausting your energy before you reach where you want to go. There may be moments around August 29th when you realize that doing more is not automatically the same as making progress. You may already have invested significant effort into something and expected that effort to produce a visible result by now, only to discover that circumstances are moving according to a different rhythm. That can be frustrating for Virgo because you often feel more comfortable when there is a clear plan, a practical next step, and some evidence that your effort is producing results. But some situations cannot be rushed into readiness simply because you have prepared yourself for them. Instead of trying to control every outcome, ask yourself what part of the situation actually belongs to you and place your energy there. This is where a different kind of courage begins to appear. You may be invited to consider an opportunity, a change in direction, or a new way of approaching something you have been trying to solve. You may not have every detail yet, and that is okay. Saying yes does not mean moving without thought. It means recognizing when a door deserves your attention and choosing your next step with intention. If you have been waiting for movement, allow that movement to begin through a clear decision rather than through pressure to have everything perfectly planned. Sometimes the strongest action is the one that comes after you stop arguing with yourself. And if something becomes difficult along the way, do not measure your worth by how quickly you fix it or how much responsibility you can carry. A difficult moment can reveal something more important than whether you are capable of handling it. It can reveal what you are actually willing to spend your strength on. The real question may not be whether you can solve another problem. It may be whether that problem is teaching you to become wiser about where your effort belongs. Some challenges deserve your full attention. Others only become exhausting because you keep trying to perfect them. Your time and energy matter, Virgo. You may sometimes pour yourself into fixing, organizing, explaining, improving, or carrying situations that were never meant to become your responsibility. Especially when you believe that one more adjustment might finally make everything work. But there comes a point when persistence stops being useful and starts becoming depletion. If a person, environment, or repeated situation constantly leaves you feeling as though nothing is ever good enough, stepping back is not failure. It is a decision about what your energy is worth. Boundaries may become especially important now. You do not have to correct every misunderstanding, answer every criticism, or explain every decision simply because someone expects your attention. There is strength in knowing when to engage and when to leave something alone. Not every imperfect situation needs to be repaired immediately. Your purpose is not served by spending your energy trying to control everything at once. Notice what genuinely supports your growth and what only keeps you trapped in a cycle of fixing. As you move through August 29th, let your definition of progress become more thoughtful. You may actually be closer to an important goal than you realize. But being close does not mean you need to immediately move on to another task the moment something begins to go well. Sometimes your greatest temptation arrives just after you realize that your effort has finally worked. You see progress and immediately start searching for what still needs improvement. Let yourself appreciate what has been accomplished while remaining present enough to understand that lasting progress requires pacing, attention, and the willingness to build instead of constantly correcting. You are proving your worth through what you choose, what you sustain, and what you are willing to leave unfinished when perfection is no longer useful. That carries more weight than outside approval ever could. If something you have worked toward begins to take shape, allow yourself to feel proud without turning that pride into pressure to accomplish even more immediately. You can acknowledge how far you have come while remaining focused on what genuinely needs your care next. Confidence becomes steadier when it no longer depends on everything being perfect. There is also something important about sharing your progress with the people who have been part of your journey. You may hope that everyone around you will understand your excitement or recognize how much effort went into what you achieved. But people are moving through their own circumstances, fears, and seasons. If someone does not respond exactly as you imagined, try not to automatically interpret that as rejection or as a judgment of your success. Your growth can quietly inspire another person without requiring them to understand every detail behind it. Sometimes the healthiest response is simply to let your progress speak for itself. As you continue forward, do not let responsibility make you forget the things that keep you strong enough to continue. Rest, nourishment, recovery, quiet time, and moments without productivity are not distractions from your goals. They are part of how you sustain them. The point is not simply to reach the place you have been working toward. It is to have enough strength left within you to actually enjoy what you have built. Your mind needs space, Virgo. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is step back long enough to make sure you are not exhausting yourself simply to prove that you can keep everything under control. Across August 29, 2026, the deeper emotional theme is about seeing what has been hidden beneath your need for certainty and deciding what genuinely deserves your attention. The star appears as a symbol of renewed perspective after a period when you may have questioned whether your careful efforts were leading anywhere. Its message is not simply to hope that everything becomes better. It is to connect hope with honest self-awareness. Instead of waiting for someone outside of you to confirm that you are on the right path, notice what brings you a quiet sense of purpose. Clarity does not always arrive as a perfect plan. Sometimes clarity is simply realizing that one path no longer feels worth endlessly correcting. The star also speaks to the part of you that may have become tired of carrying disappointment as though disappointment were proof that you needed to work harder. You can acknowledge what did not go according to plan without allowing it to dictate your next move. If something in your personal life has caused you to question yourself, give yourself room to recover your confidence without turning healing into another task you must complete perfectly. Your sensitivity to details does not make you less powerful, Virgo. It gives you information about what matters, what has changed, and where your strength can now be used more wisely. Then comes the Wheel of Fortune, bringing movement and changing circumstances. Its message is not that everything will suddenly turn in your favor. Instead, it reminds you that no situation remains frozen forever. Something that has felt stalled or uncertain may begin to shift. Your role is not to control every turn of the wheel. Your role is to recognize when the landscape changes and respond without clinging to the strategy that worked yesterday. For a Virgo who naturally prefers preparation and predictability, this can become a meaningful lesson in flexibility. Sometimes progress comes from knowing when to adjust your plan rather than continuing to perfect the old one. The magician then brings your attention back to what is already in your hands. You may have more knowledge, experience, practical ability, creativity, organization, and resourcefulness than you have been giving yourself credit for. But having the tools is only part of the equation. The deeper question is how intentionally you use them. The magician represents the moment when you stop waiting for perfect conditions and begin working with what is actually available. An idea can become a plan. A conversation can become a decision. A concern can become a practical action. For you, Virgo, the message is not about controlling reality. It is about directing your energy instead of scattering it across every possible problem. If you have been trying to solve everything at once, choose one meaningful priority and give it your full attention. This is especially important in relationships. Say what you need to say, but also create enough space to hear what another person needs from you. Real confidence does not require you to have the perfect answer every time. The Four of Wands brings a softer dimension into your love life, pointing toward stability, belonging, celebration, and the foundations you are building with another person. You may desire something that feels dependable without becoming boring, meaningful without becoming complicated, and loving without constantly needing to be analyzed. If you are in a relationship, there may be value in creating moments where neither person has to solve anything, fix an issue, or decide what comes next. Sometimes closeness grows through ordinary things, sharing a meal, taking a walk, having an honest conversation, or simply allowing another person to feel heard without immediately offering a solution. If you are single, the same symbolism asks you to examine how quickly you evaluate what excites you. Attraction can create an immediate spark, but a lasting connection needs time to reveal its character. You may naturally look for signs that tell you whether someone is right for you, and that instinct can protect you. But there is another kind of courage in slowing down enough to discover who someone actually is rather than deciding too early what the connection means. You do not have to ignore your standards. Give the connection enough time to show whether it can become stable. The Emperor then brings structure into the story, and this is especially meaningful for Virgo. Real strength is not about controlling every variable or proving that you can manage everything yourself. It is about making clear decisions, establishing healthy boundaries, accepting responsibility for your choices, and knowing when discipline will serve you better than worry. The more consciously you direct your energy, the less you need to react to every imperfection that appears in front of you. This same principle matters for your health. Rather than treating your body as something that simply has to keep up with your responsibilities, pay attention to whether your pace is sustainable. If you have been delaying rest, rushing through meals, ignoring fatigue, or treating recovery as something you will handle later, your body may be asking for a different rhythm. You do not need to become rigid about wellness, but consistency in sleep, nourishment, movement, and downtime can help protect the energy you need for everything else. The goal is balance without turning balance into another standard you must meet perfectly. Enjoy what you enjoy, work toward what matters, and give yourself permission to slow down when your body asks for it. If you want your momentum to last, respect the conditions that allow you to keep moving with a clear mind and a steady sense of yourself. When it comes to work, communication from a supervisor, manager, teacher, or another person in a position of authority could challenge your first reaction. If you have been working carefully, criticism or even a simple question about your performance may initially feel more personal than it actually is. Before becoming discouraged or defending every detail of what you have done, pause and ask what the feedback is actually pointing toward. There may simply be something that needs clarification, a habit that could be improved, or a priority that has become blurred because you have been carrying too many goals at once. Your attention to detail can be one of your greatest professional strengths, but it can also make mistakes or criticism feel more significant than they really are. Listen carefully. Take what is useful. Then decide what needs to change rather than reacting from self-doubt. Adapting your strategy does not make you less capable. It shows that your intelligence is becoming more flexible. If you have been searching for work, building a project, or waiting for someone to recognize what you can offer, the lack of an immediate result does not necessarily mean the opportunity is gone. Sometimes the position or path you wanted was simply too narrow for the person you are becoming. What looked like a delay may have been giving you room to reconsider what kind of work would actually allow your strengths to grow. Instead of waiting indefinitely for the perfect opportunity, consider whether there is another route you can create for yourself. You do not need to make a reckless leap, but you can begin gathering the pieces of something that belongs to you. There may be abilities you have left unused because you were focused on one particular path, and rediscovering them could change the way you see your options. When it comes to finances, August 29th carries a theme of reassessment rather than a promise of sudden fortune. You may notice something about the way you have been handling money, resources, commitments, or long-term plans that deserves another look. That realization may be more valuable than a temporary windfall. The Wheel of Fortune reminds you symbolically that circumstances change, but it also asks you to remain adaptable enough to respond when they do. The Star brings clearer perspective. If uncertainty has made you question whether your efforts are leading anywhere, this is an opportunity to replace vague hope with a more practical sense of direction. Think about what you are building, where your resources are going, and whether your current choices support the kind of stability you actually want. You do not need to chase every possibility simply because it looks exciting. Sometimes abundance begins by recognizing which opportunities deserve deeper commitment and which ones are distracting you from the plan that already matters. The Magician reinforces your ability to work with what you already possess. Your ideas, skills, experience, creativity, organization, contacts, and willingness to begin are all resources, but they become useful when organized around a clear purpose. Turn the spark into structure. Turn the idea into steps. Allow your practical intelligence to become something tangible rather than scattering itself across too many possibilities. The Four of Wands shifts the financial message toward foundations, while the Emperor adds discipline. You do not need to control everything, but you do need to know what you are responsible for, what you are willing to commit to, and where stronger boundaries around your resources may be necessary. In love, there is another important adjustment. When you become focused on personal goals, responsibilities, achievement, or keeping everything organized, it can be surprisingly easy to overlook what is happening emotionally between you and another person. If you have noticed distance in a relationship, resist the urge to treat it as another problem that needs to be solved immediately. Instead, slow down enough to ask questions. Listen without preparing your response, and let the other person tell you what their experience has been. Sometimes reconnection does not require a grand gesture. It can begin with dinner without distractions, a walk where neither of you is rushing toward the next task, or a simple conversation in which you are genuinely present instead of trying to improve the situation immediately. You may be accustomed to showing love by helping, planning, fixing things, or making life easier for the people you care about. But emotional intimacy also requires receptiveness. Let someone contribute to the relationship in their own way. Partnership becomes stronger when neither person feels that everything has to be managed by one side. If you are single, this period may ask you to examine the difference between being ready for connection and being impatient for certainty. You may recognize an attraction or sense that an opportunity for connection is available, but you do not need to turn that feeling into an immediate conclusion about where it is going. A simple invitation, an honest conversation, or an unexpected interaction can create movement, but allow the other person enough room to reveal themselves as well. Your judgment can help you recognize a meaningful connection, but patience helps you understand whether there is actually something worth building. Do not let the fear of making the wrong choice convince you that you have to remain completely still. But do not let excitement or analysis make the choice for you either. Virgo energy is powerful when it acts from clear understanding rather than from the need to eliminate every uncertainty. If there is genuine interest, explore it. If there is mutual effort, give it room to develop. And if you repeatedly find yourself carrying the entire connection alone, pay attention to that pattern instead of trying to compensate for it with even more effort. Family brings a different kind of lesson because you cannot always approach familiar relationships with the same practicality you would use to handle a personal goal. Misunderstandings may become easier to address when you are willing to listen before deciding what everyone should do next. The star can symbolize renewed hope within these relationships. The Wheel of Fortune reflects the reality that family dynamics change as people grow and move through different circumstances. You may not be able to control how everyone responds, but you can choose the quality of your own participation. The Magician becomes intentional communication. Instead of waiting for everyone to somehow understand what you mean, say what you need clearly and give others enough space to respond in their own way. The Four of Wands brings attention to the warmth created when people remember what they share rather than focusing only on old disagreements, while the Emperor reminds you that healthy family relationships still require boundaries. You can care deeply about someone without allowing every conflict, demand, or expectation to dictate your choices. Sometimes the most constructive form of leadership is knowing when to speak clearly and when to let another person find their own way. As for your personal energy, there may be a strong sense of movement around you. Your motivation may be returning, and you may finally feel ready to tackle something you have been postponing. Yet that is precisely when pacing becomes important. Pause is not surrender. Sometimes it is where you gather enough clarity to make your next move cleaner, stronger, and more effective. Pay attention when your body or mind begins asking for recovery, even if your thoughts insist that there is still more to accomplish. The healthiest version of your ambition is not the one that keeps working until there is nothing left. It is the one that knows when to restore its strength, so the next step comes from capacity rather than depletion. There is also a constructive opportunity here to begin something you have been thinking about for a while. If a project, conversation, application, creative idea, or personal decision has remained on your mind, consider what one deliberate action would move it out of your head and into reality. You do not need to solve the entire path at once. Take the step that genuinely belongs in front of you and let the next piece become visible through experience. At the same time, be careful with extremes. Excessive perfectionism can make you delay something that is ready enough to begin, while discouragement can make you abandon something simply because it is taking longer than expected. Your strength during this period comes from holding both sides, the courage to move and the discipline to reflect. You are not being asked to become less careful. You are learning how to make your careful nature useful rather than exhausting. For students, this same principle applies to learning. Your attention to detail, independence, and ability to notice patterns can help you stand out. But real growth also requires humility. Someone else may see something you missed. If you are working with classmates or participating in an academic team, listen to other perspectives before deciding that your approach is automatically the strongest one. Giving someone else room to contribute does not diminish your ability. It expands the information available to you and can make your own thinking more precise. Knowledge also becomes deeper when you are genuinely curious rather than simply trying to complete an assignment or achieve a particular result. Let your desire to understand help you learn, but allow curiosity to challenge you as well, especially when another person's perspective reveals a part of the subject you had not considered before. And when it comes to compatibility, 3 signs may bring especially useful qualities into your awareness during this period, not as fixed predictions, but as symbolic reflections of qualities that can complement your Virgo nature. Taurus can teach you the power of patience and stability. You may naturally want to improve things quickly once you recognize what needs attention, while Taurus energy reminds you that some changes become stronger when they are allowed to develop slowly. Someone with strong Taurus qualities may help you appreciate consistency rather than constantly searching for the next improvement. Scorpio brings emotional depth and strategic focus. Virgo often looks carefully at what is visible and practical, while Scorpio reminds you that some truths exist beneath the surface. Someone with strong Scorpio qualities may encourage you to trust your ability to understand more than what is immediately obvious while still protecting your boundaries. Capricorn offers another lesson that may be especially valuable for you: discipline with purpose. Virgo naturally understands the value of details and responsibility, while Capricorn reminds you to connect those details to a larger long-term structure. Someone with Capricorn qualities may encourage you to think beyond the immediate task and consider whether the path you are choosing can support the future you are trying to create. Virgo, as you move through August 29, 2026, keep returning to the question of direction. You already know how to analyze, organize, improve, and prepare. You know how to notice what others overlook and how to create order when circumstances become complicated. But your deeper growth may now come from becoming more deliberate about where that ability belongs. The strongest form of wisdom is not the ability to control every detail. It is the ability to know which details truly matter. Take what genuinely speaks to your experience and question what does not. Astrology can offer a symbolic lens, but you remain the person who decides what to do with what you see. If this reading gave you a moment of clarity or helped you recognize something about the way you are moving through your life, support the channel by leaving a like and sharing this space with someone who may find it meaningful. And if you would like to stay connected with future readings, reflections, and messages for the road ahead, subscribe and turn on notifications so you can return whenever these conversations are useful to you. Thank you for being part of this community. Keep your standards high, Virgo, but do not let perfection decide where your energy goes. Because the future you are creating now is shaped not only by how carefully you plan, but by how consciously you choose what deserves your attention, your effort, and your next step.